Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we peek into the sports world, but we ask a cultural question. I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and this being Fake the Nation and me being not a sports person, anytime a sports-related anything comes out of my mouth, it makes me blush and feel warm. All right. Today, we'll also look at how the UK has taken on crime. We'll look at the situation in LA and all the political fallout from the Elon Trump breakup, and his big beautiful bill, and finally a new theory on why youngsters are choosing not to have children. Also, I should note that this taping is a little earlier than normal, so apologies for any news that we miss, but I'll make up for it by covering it on Wait, Don't Tell Me, where I'm guest hosting this week. So if you tune into that show, you will hopefully hear the couple of days of missed content. All right, now let us introduce today's panel, which, oh my God, what a delightful panel we have assembled for you today. They're both have been on the show many times before because they're fantastic. First up, we have she's a comedian. She's a co-host of the Go Touch Grass podcast. She's so funny. If you ever get a chance to listen to her podcast, do it, or see her perform, do that, or just hang out with her, definitely do that. It is the incredible Milly Tamarez. Hey,
Yay!
Milly.
How are you? I'm so happy to be in the nation that is being faked.
Oh God, and the nation is so excited.
Yes.
And joining Milly on today's episode is, again, just like an alum of the show. You've heard his voice. You've loved his voice. He's host of the Political Orphanage podcast. He's also author of the book Tribalism is Dumb, which is out now. It is available for you to purchase, which you absolutely should, because he's always so insightful. It is the incredible Andrew Heaton. Hey, Andrew.
Hello. I am delighted to be back. I'm delighted to be faking the nation with you.
And just before we get into the show, I wanted to let listeners know that we may be experiencing technical difficulties because of things outside of my control. So if you hear any discombobulations in the recording, I apologize. If you don't, then we're just exceeding expectations, and you're welcome. So let's just see what happens. Let us get into it with topic number one. We want to warm up our talking mouths with a little cultural amuse-bouche. I've had a question that's heavy on my heart, lo, these many months. And that question is, why does anyone pay attention to Bill Belichick's girlfriend? Some details for listeners who might not know anything about her. I think it's fascinating that I know anything about her, because I don't know anything about Bill Belichick particularly, though I've learned that he's some sort of a football phenom coach-wise. Now his girlfriend, though, her name is Jordan Hudson, spelled with two O's, the Jordan. Which I think is, yes. So is it really Jordan, or
I think it's Jordan, but like twee.
Listen, what's happening is right now we have so many overlapping conversations with this. And what people need to know is that when I was growing up, Black people in America were made fun of for their eccentric names. But I tell you that white people in America have taken that over. The names are never spelled how they're pronounced. There's always extra vowels. So Jordan, but that is something specifically with Gen Z and younger. People are getting crazy with the names, and that's why I'm saying it's Jordan with two O's, but it's spelled Jordan. So...
Jordan. And that's how I'll say it now in my head and out loud for the rest of my days. She's 24, and that makes her a cool 49 years younger than her man, Bill Belichick. She does a lot of talking for Belichick in interviews and has seemingly inserted herself into much of the Belichick decision-making apparatus. I think supposedly, allegedly. And she was also Miss Maine in the USA pageant, which makes her smoking hot. Now, I guess, I mean, and I don't know, Andrew, are you a football person?
I am not.
This is so sexist because I go to the man to ask if he's a football person before the woman.
Okay.
I just want to recognize my own sexism.
But I exclusively date 24-year-old college cheerleaders. So
nice.
I actually do have a lot of overlap, but I'm not super into.
And how old are you, Andrew?
I'm 41. I'm not even a full gap within this conversation. But I'm 41. Yeah, I'm afraid I don't follow football. However, I have spoken to a number of my friends about this, and I think I can offer some insight if you want me to explain where I think this is coming from.
Because I kind of feel like Milly, as our sort of pop culture guru on the show today, has maybe can give us a bigger roundup. So let's start with what you know, which is less than her.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So I deferring to Milly, who is our resident expert here. Here's what I thought this was going to be about. I thought this was going to be about the age gap and older man is predatory on younger woman. That was kind of what I thought the story was. And my general position, by the way, is I've been in favor of gay marriage and consenting adults being able to do whatever they want to do my entire adult life. I feel the same way now. So it's not something, it's aberrant, but not unethical, in my opinion. I don't think that's where most of the ire here is coming from. When I talk to people from New England, they are like, the Patriots is a minor religion, or perhaps a major religion in New England. So it's not, when I talk to my friends from Boston, it's not that they're worried about the lady. They're worried that she's manipulating the old dude and that she's going to like cling into his mind and then he'll end up on a reality television show. So there's like a really big fear that he's being taken advantage of and that this will somehow affect his football skills.
Okay. Now, Milly, right. So there's a little elder abuse action is a little bit of that angle.
Yeah. So I would say like the girlies online, like they're just like, unfortunately we have to stand, which is like, we're big fans. Like, again, it's what we see over and over is an older man imposing himself into a younger woman, like kind of taking control of her life and like changing the course of her life. What we see here is like a really interesting thing of power, because what's happening is in interviews she's speaking for him. She's made stipulations where he can't appear. She appeared on the Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl commercial with him. Like, he could not be in the commercial without her. She's making it so that she's getting a lot of attention, basically getting everything that she wants out of it. And I think that, on one end, people are like, this is elder abuse. We have to, she's manipulating him. On the other hand, it's like, wow, here's this woman who, because why else would a fucking 75-year-old, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, a 75-year-old woman, a 75-year-old man be with a woman? Like, what is the woman getting out of it? So I feel like because she's so brazen and forthcoming, she's not like, oh, we fell in love naturally and this and that. She's like, she has 9 properties now, like suddenly,
wow,
all these things. So
9? That was
9.
fast.
I'll date a 75-year-old dude for 9 properties. Like,
for 9
properties.
Exactly. But like, there is something that we're so used to about women in these age gap relationships where it's like, if it becomes advantageous for her as well, then it's abuse. But if it's just a guy being predatory, well, men like younger women because XYZ and they're this and that. But it's like, yeah, but probably why does she like an older man? It's because she can get 9 properties. She's going to be in the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. She's going to get whatever deal she wants. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's
so
kind of how I feel.
Right.
That's what the girls are talking about.
That basically, it's interesting because it's not unlike every calculation for courtship that occurred before the mid 20th century, where now we're like, calculations about courtship have to do with love. They shouldn't be about anything else or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, in the most of the history of courtship, it's been about stability. It's been about how many goats are you bringing to the table? How many, what sort of shekels are being exchanged in the thing? How many little baggies of coins are at the thing? And so I feel like that's what it's been for the most of time. And now it's kind of still that way. For a lot of people, that calculation still comes into play, but we view that calculation as like gross. Is that kind of right?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of my overall cultural analysis of this thing, of how people are speaking about her. It is like, again, very brazen. Like that, a big moment that people talk about is when he did his 60 Minutes interview, and the 60 Minutes person asked, "So how did you meet?" And she, from backstage, from the booth, is like, "We're not answering that." So there is some speculation of there was a nefarious way in which they met, if it was from some kind of website or some kind of service. But ultimately, it is about, they don't just want a woman to have fun and be like, you know what, I'm going to get with this old guy that's going to buy me. I'm going to secure and make it so my life is better off after this old guy leaves.
Right.
You know what I mean? To the same extent, it's a similar conversation with Anna Nicole Smith, rest in peace.
Yeah, what's funny about Anna Nicole Smith is that, like, I was thinking about her, like, reading about this Jordan, and I don't remember who she was even married to. Like, I have no concept of who Anna Nicole Smith was married to, just that she was like a fixture of what it was, that early 2000s. I don't even remember what era of my life that was, but it was like she was just, her name was uttered all the time for being like hot and with some old guy.
Yeah, and basically the story behind that, I mean, I don't know if Andrew has anything, so I'm like just talking over. I'm sorry to talk over a man's experience. Tell me how you experienced that, Andrew.
Well, I don't remember the Anna Nicole Smith tremendously, but I do have a couple of thoughts on this. I don't know, good for both of these people. This strikes me as a pretty good deal for everybody involved. Like, okay, theoretically, let's say that how old's Bill Belichick? 71? Was that the number?
78 or something?
78. Okay. Let's say my 80-year-old uncle starts dating a 24-year-old cheerleader. And I'm like, hey man, I'm really afraid she's going to badger you into doing a reality television show. All you get is the companionship. Like, I think I'd be like, I don't know. Like if there were actual questions of senility, if that were actually a thing and like bank manipulation, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The other bit too is I realize that there's something that we culturally now find kind of grody about appearing transactional. But something that I hear doing stand-up comedy a fair amount is there's particularly from the guys that are just starting out in stand-up comedy, there's a lot of the time this joke about gold diggers and like women that just want your money. And I'm like, right, but you just want to bang them because they have good tits. Like that, you're not like holy,
right? Like that's not like much better.
There's not like the fact that you're viscerally attracted to this person on a sexual level, and that's it, is not somehow more enlightened than them maybe being sexually attracted to somebody that can provide for them or caring about that. But I don't know. I think that there's lots of different reasons you can like somebody, and this does not automatically trip my alarms. My default state is consenting adults can form relationships, and I support that. Just don't hurt anybody.
All right. I love that. Let's switch gears. By the way, I love that, like, the sports made it into Fake the Nation, but with such a, like, not remotely, there was like literally nothing about sports, which is the way I like it. Perfect. So I wanted to just do a quick, like, mention of this interesting thing I learned recently, which is that in Wales, they wanted to reduce the alcohol-related crime. And they have this thing that happens in the UK called glassings, which is a term I had never heard before, but it's like the crime you do with like glass shards. Have you guys heard this term before?
I'm a really irritating person that summers in the United Kingdom. I'm finally at the point where I use summer as a verb. And
wow. See, that's why the 24-year-olds are into you, Andrew. Come on.
Billy, to be clear, what this means is I stay at a different flop house every summer for 6 weeks, somewhere at an illegal Airbnb in the Edinburgh area. But I am over there all the time. So, I know what glassing is. Yeah.
Well, and I gotta say, when it comes to alcohol-related crime, like I lived in London for 6 months this one time, and I it's funny because like I know like I live in New York City, but I never actually felt more unsafe than when I lived in London because I lived kind of near a stadium, and then whenever that stadium was active with some sort of a football game, by which I mean soccer, there would be just like some measure of violence that would occur, and it made me feel really like I was in danger just walking around that neighborhood. And in general, like there's just so much more drinking and so much like as a comedian, I've never been more heckled. As a like woman, I've never been more, it just feels so much more. So this, I was like, oh, I'm glad they're like looking at this. And one of the things they did with glassings is that they replaced the glass, the bottles that we know, with a polycarbonate mix or whatever that's more shatterproof, so they can't use the glass in such a dangerous way. They had a pilot project in Northampton where they switched the bottles, and that led since 2004 to a 40% decrease in glassing incidents. Of course, that's not all bottle related. There's changes in culture around how much people drink, blah blah blah. There's a lot of changes, but this one thing seems to have also had a major impact. Isn't that crazy that one small thing had such a big seems to have had an outsized impact? What do you guys think? And Andrew, as someone who's lived there, what do you think?
So alcohol is a thing. Negin, did you encounter Buckfast while you were over there? Milly, have you ever encountered Buckfast?
I don't know.
Buckfast is caffeinated wine. It is made in England by a group, I think, of Benedictine monks that don't, or some kind of monks in England make it. It's like their thing, but it's this caffeinated, very sweet wine. And if I'm in Edinburgh and I see somebody buying Buckfast, I'm like, I'm out of here, because like, you're like, oh, Buckfast,
Danger.
I think I'll drink this and fight someone in a car park. Like, it's this very like if anybody's buying Buckfast, they're up to no good. So
it's like Four Loko, but
it's like Four Loko. It's like British Four Loko, and it's what you do when you get revved up and fight people. So I'm not surprised that there could be tweaks that would reduce violence. I question this one a little bit, but mostly because I couldn't find the study. So in terms of tweaks that can reduce violence with alcohol, one of the things that we find in public policy is that I think it's for every hour liquor stores are open after midnight, you're going to have a lot more violence. So I being very don't do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody. I tend to not like things like sin taxes and things like that, but restricting the hours on liquor stores past midnight, I think, is actually pretty safe. You're not telling people they can't make decisions about what they want to buy. You're not restricting their access to liquor in general. You're telling them they have to plan for it rather than go buy Buckfast at 1 o'clock in the morning, which isn't going to work well. So public policy measures like that, I think, actually do have a pretty good reduction in terms of violent crime at night. In terms of the bottles, I tried to find the study and I couldn't find it.
It was like embedded in another article about blah, blah. It was like hard to find. Yeah.
For me, that it would depend on how they implement that, whether I think it would be very effective or not. It would be very difficult to do like a universal shatterproof glass ban in Wales. I don't know how you'd accomplish that without.
And they haven't, they haven't, because they've suggested it basically to the pubs. Right. Like, can you carry this other type of bottle?
And that's where I think you could do it. Is like if you're just trying to get rid of all bottles, that's like Wales is not going to stop importing wine, and it's not going to stop importing scotch. But I think what you could do, which has been piloted at lots of clubs in Glasgow and Edinburgh and in England, and I would assume Wales as well, is they'll like nightclubs that tend to be kind of rowdy, or bars that are continually rowdy. They'll go in and go, hey, can you guys just have shatterproof glasses? And get like either plastic glasses if you're more of a dive bar, or they make this kind of polycarbonate, like really dense, difficult to get sharp glass. That makes sense to me, of like trying to target to environments where you think there's going to be violence.
Right, where there's like, Milly, last word on this. Do you feel, what do you feel about changing the glasses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because there's some people, just to go back to Andrew's point about like changing the hours, there's some people who make arguments of like, and I know in New York nightlife, there's kind of like an argument for extending the hours, like not having a curfew, because then it's not a bottleneck of everyone leaving at the same time and all of that. And interesting, when I was in London, we had a glass of beer. They're like, the pub's closed. They took our drinks, poured it in plastic cups, and like pushed us out of there. So it's really interesting to see like what is causing people to over drink and over consume, and whether it's the glasses or whether it's not. because in America there's a lot of violence, but we're not allowed to drink in public except for like New Orleans or Las Vegas.
Our culture of drinking is a little different.
We changed it during COVID, and we were fine. And then we went back to not drinking in public because Puritans.
Yeah. So there's that. And then there's stuff about, like right now, kind of the trendy thing amongst Gen Z is like not to drink at all. Like there's a lot more non-alcoholic. There's like non-alcoholic, mocktail bars and stuff. So it's really interesting to see how all of these coincide together. But listen, if it works over there, I mean, people like cans. People like everything's coming in cans now. And then we're gonna find
everything's coming up cans.
Yeah.
All right, folks, let's take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. All right. This has been a fucking crazy time. ICE raids in LA sparked protests near City Hall, which resulted in a standoff between California State and Trump, who claimed that California didn't have the situation under control. There was damage at a gas station, a car set on fire, fireworks, and the images that were coming out weren't great, but they were also not very clear what specifically was going on. Trump had a conversation with Newsom being like, I'm going to send in the National Guard. And Newsom's like, no, don't do that because we have it under control. Nevertheless, Saturday night, he sent in the 2,000 National Guard troops without the blessing of the governor. And basically it's been that situation since Saturday of there's National Guard protecting federal buildings specifically. And I guess just so we have a little understanding of like this particular, action from Trump, this hasn't happened where a president has sent in National Guards without the blessing of the governor since 1965. And that happened in sort of the reverse where the governor didn't want them because he didn't want to protect the protesters that were going to do the march in Selma. And this is a little bit of like the opposite situation where like maybe the president wants to rile people up with the presence of the troops. And I don't know. So, okay. So my question, Milly, looking at this from the outside, I guess what were your first thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now we know, like, in all of Trump's strategy and like the strategy of the right, the greatest hits, the thing that he always goes back to is immigration. It's the one thing that he like has a close, clear win. And right now, what's happening in this country is that people who are undocumented for a long time in this country, if they went to their check-ins, if they were trying to do things quote the right way, they have kids, they're paying taxes, they pay into the system with hopes that one day they can have their green card, become a resident, all this stuff. These people don't travel home for 10, 15, 20 years. They don't, America is their home. And right now what's happening is that people are doing things, quote, the right way, and they're getting detained right there, and the reality is you're never going to get rid of every undocumented person. We can't get rid of every undocumented person in this country. Our economy wouldn't function. Things wouldn't get picked. A lot of things wouldn't function, but it's like to create an like a permanent underclass of people that can work with no rights, with underpay forever, always. That's kind of the goal. It's not to not have whatever. So these protests are in protest of that, of people going to ICE appointments, are going to their appointments with immigration and getting detained right there and immediately deported without the proper process, without the way that we've been doing things in a immigration system that's been broken for a long ass time. So, and this is all again to, like, I view the ratcheting it up as a way for Trump to be like, well, see, like my big beautiful bill is a flop. it's gonna ruin this country. Everything else, that, like, I don't really have any policy things, but look at the immigrants and look at they're all so violent and they're all so crazy.
And that's, I mean, I feel like that to me, when we were talking about the coming Trump administration in like December, I remember saying this kind of thing, that basically this scene feels utterly unsurprising to me. I feel like this is exactly the scene they've wanted to create before they even took office, because they wanted to show that they were doing stuff about immigrants. And Stephen Miller even had in the last couple of weeks went to Homeland Security, which is like, we need to see a ton more. And he basically gave them a quota. We need to see a ton more arrests. And the problem with the quota is that he's like, we need to gather up all these criminal immigrants, but they're not there's not enough criminal undocumented immigrants, right? And so then they just have to start rounding up people who are not criminals, and that to get that number. And that's what we're seeing. And they love the display of force, and they love the imagery, and that's all they want. They want they're building like a sizzle reel of cruelty, and to make the point that they're doing something, because obviously on a legislative front, so far they're doing nothing. And anything, and there's no price reductions. There's nothing feels better. Like the administration is generally in a shit fuck. And because they're in a shit fuck, they have to come up with all this fucking other garbage to look like icing.
Yeah,
they have to make right. So Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Trump is a great president, and I'm joking. I broadly agree with you both. Maybe I would have some quibbles on the edges, but I broadly agree with you. I went down to the border last year. I went down to right along the Mexican-American border. I did a special on my show, The Political Orphanage, about immigration, where I met with Catholic Charities to talk to them about what they're doing to help people that are coming through. I met with a Border Patrol chief. And my position after that experience was that I want wide gates and high walls. I want to dramatically increase the amount of legal immigration that comes into this country. I think immigrants are great. I want high-skilled immigrants. I also want low-skilled immigrants. The people that rely on low-skilled immigrants, to like migrant workers, I spoke to a few. I talked to one guy who he does talent scouting for the circus. And has to get
what?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I sat at lunch with this guy, and I made some joke about like, so are we going to root for H-1 visas or H-2 visas? And he was like, well, actually, they're both good. And I was like, great, Wilford Brimley, like walk me through this. And like, come to find out, he's a talent scout for circuses, and apparently a lot of the skill sets that you get of like trapeze artists and things tend to be like taught within a family.
Eastern European.
And you get places that'll specialize where it's like, oh, we need a cannon guy. Well, you got to go to Guatemala if you're going to get a cannon guy. Like, and he was telling me just how difficult it was to legally get people through the system. And we don't have, sorry, people just don't want to be fired out of cannons in America anymore. So you got to go to Guatemala for that. I talked to a few people that ran that run farms where they hire migrants. They obey the letter of the law. They have a really, really high return rate of people that come back because they treat them well. They, actually provide the infrastructure necessary for them. And they talked about how incredibly difficult it was to do that, and how much easier it was for their competitors to just do it illegally and not go through all the hoops. And so I'm very much in favor of immigration reform. I think that Trump is not. I do not think the old position of the Republicans, like when Romney was there, was sort of like immigration's good, but we need more security. I don't think we're even pretending that with current Republicans. It's we've got too many immigrants. Immigrants are bad, and they're wanting to restrict it, which is awful. In terms of the optics of the situation, I agree with you, Negin. I think that what Trump wants to do is go, look, California's a basket case, and they are shielding illegal immigrants. And so the law and order guy that is willing to break some skulls, I'm sending in the troops. I think that that's what they're going to do. The part of this that I find interesting, though, is the legality of it, which I think is probably on the side of the president. I'm not saying this is a good idea. I'm not saying it's in service of a good cause. But when I look into it, like, he's not invoking the Insurrection Act. which is what.
Well, he doesn't believe in that anymore. So.
Is he opposed to the insurrection? Oh, because of yeah.
I mean, because of right. Yeah.
But like that's what like Eisenhower invoked when he was sending in the National Guard, right, to force integration when the governor of Arkansas was against it. So he's falling below that legal threshold, which I think is a good thing because it means that there's less military actions available to him, and probably fits the legal bill on it. But overall, though, I agree. I think a lot of what Trump does is he likes stacking up wins, just any kind of win for his team. And you can get wins by precipitating problems. I think a lot of the tariff stuff is just that.
Yes.
Of like,
yes.
we're just going
to create a problem, have a solution.
That's like from now on, 1,000% tariffs on marsupials and all other pervert mammals. And then everybody's like, what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden, like Australia's mad. We're like 3,000% at Australia. And then we'll negotiate and we'll get back to exactly where we were and it'll be a win. So I think that this is another example of that.
And I feel like that's easier than actually solving the problems that they have.
Then actually, of course it is. Yeah. So let's quickly talk about this before we move on. This is crazy, but last week we had on literally Fez Siddiqui, who wrote this incredible book, Maximus Hubris, about Elon Musk, right? So he wrote the book on Elon. Elon had been in the news because of ketamine and his bladder, of course. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that, and he said the thing about, like, he criticized the big beautiful tax bill. And then we taped right before the breakup. So we didn't even get to hear from the guy that wrote the book on it about the breakup. But I wanted just, if you guys have any final thoughts that you want to share, and by the time this episode airs, the breakup may be long gone in people's minds. But he still is, Elon still is the richest man in the world, and President Trump is still the president. So fucking, what do you think, Milly, about the breakup?
I just love that. Sometimes society is not where you want it to be. Like, you're like, what's wrong with this country? But then sometimes it's like everyone will have the correct take. And I just love that everyone's like, this is a messy girl group breakup. It is like when girls go to Miami and they don't come back friends. It's so sloppy. Everyone's being so messy. And we all predicted it. Elon Musk loves mess. Donald Trump loves mess. He's had so many. I mean, Scaramucci, Omarosa. He's had his things.
Oh my God, deep. Those are deep cuts.
These are from 1.0, so we know 2.0 is already going harder and crazier. So to see that, to see Elon Musk come, it's just been pop the popcorn. And this is to say, to everyone who's not on Twitter, because they want to stay with their sanity and whatever, twice a year it becomes worth it. And it was worth it. Twice a year, the queen will die, something big will happen, Trump will get COVID, and it will be worth it to have withstand all the crazy shit you see on Twitter. And it was worth it last Thursday to see people going crazy over Elon Musk saying crazy shit about Trump. So to me, I'm enjoying it. Let them eat cake. Going back, I love it. This is exactly... I just got that good, warm feeling from when Trump was fighting with DeSantis. It brought that back.
Yeah.
Of like, well, I just love that.
What I'm fascinated by is that anyone still thinks that they can survive a Trump relationship. No one really survives the Trump relationship.
If you're that bacteria around the edge of the geyser at the bottom of the ocean, like Lindsey Graham, you could do it. You could survive if you're that kind of character.
That's right. That's right. That's Lindsey Graham is a really excellent example of that bacteria.
Yeah. What you won't do is be your own independent self that has ambitions and trajectory. That's not going to work particularly well. That's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just a normal thing and I keep saying girls and girlhood and women, but it's like, it's like, I know this guy sucks, but maybe I can change him, or he won't be like that with me. I'm the exception. I'm this, I'm that. And listen, Mr. 14 Kids, he thought he could change a man. And he figured out that he can't, baby. Welcome to the club.
He really can't.
You can't change a man, baby. You better work on your kids.
But also, I think what's fun about this story too is that they're both like volatile people. So, no one was changed. Like, they're both volatile people. Although, interestingly, I'm like, whatever, in the breakup, 1% more on Elon's side, because he, like, occasionally says something reasonable, like this bill actually adds money to the deficit was a reasonable thing to say. Like, it's a monstrous bill, not exactly for the reasons that Elon thinks it's monstrous, but because, but for other reasons. So there's like a universe where some of Elon's thoughts, and actually we talked about this last week, but like, he actually believes in climate change, all of that stuff. I'm like, okay, reasonable. There's like a couple of points of humanity that I can grab a hold of with that guy. But still, he's pretty fucking volatile. And a big sign of that volatility is, guess what? He was a fucking Democrat for a long time. You know what I mean? Well, that's true.
And also to counter your...
Maybe Elon is just younger, a younger version.
Sorry, continue. Sorry.
Go ahead. The sad thing about Elon for me is I liked Elon until he got political, by which I mean Elon did a lot of heavy lifting on electric vehicles. I think that up until he bought Twitter, I was like, this is a major force for good in terms of climate change. He also was doing really innovative stuff with SpaceX. I was like, this is great. And then he bought Twitter, and I was like, you could build a moon base for the amount of money that you could literally build a moon base with the amount of money you've got and the infrastructure.
I mean, is that how much moon bases are going for these days?
Yeah, that's standard moon base is about one Twitter. They went Twitter, and I was like, what a waste of money. And then he just kept getting more and more political. And then I was like, this has just gotten bad. But like, he could have built a moon base and been the guy that popularized EV vehicles.
He could have he could have done like more, just continued on like some sort of positive notion of what to do for humanity, and he would have had such a great reputation, and Tesla wouldn't have lost market share. And by the way, one thing we also didn't see in time was that Tesla's price dropped by 14%. So okay, let us move on. But I know I got a couple of emails from listeners being like, I guess you talked about about Elon like fucking 12 hours too soon. All right, let us move on to topic number 3. We're going to talk about a new theory of why millennials and Gen Z are choosing not to have kids. We read a piece called "There's a Link Between Therapy Culture and Childlessness" by Michal Leibowitz. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. He makes the case that since therapy has taken off, we now regularly cite all the many things our parents did wrong. Some people cut off contact with their parent. Others constantly refer to their trauma, harm, neglect, and other popular therapy terms. And now that it's time to have kids, as the writer sees it, quote, we've held our own parents to unreachable standards that deep down maybe we know we ourselves would struggle to meet. So I guess what do you guys make of this? Andrew, what do you make of this connection that's being made here, this new theory of childlessness, between the link between therapy and childlessness?
I think it is an interesting thought experiment, but probably not very relevant statistically to what's actually happening. The reason that I say that is that fertility rates are plunging globally, pretty much in every developed country, many of which have very different cultures. Now, I don't know what the therapy culture is like between
in those countries,
Hong Kong, South Korea, Australia, the Netherlands, and America. But my guess is that it's not universal. But the trend does not appear to be associated with therapy, from what I can tell. It appears to be associated with basically when societies get wealthy enough, affluent enough, and developed enough that you don't have child labor, you have education. Kids go from what they used to be in older agrarian economies, how you didn't starve to death because you had to grow your own workers. And we flip it to where, look, now kids are an investment. They're like, I'm saying this very, very economist speak. I don't mean this on a moral level, but they're a luxury good from an economic standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the predominant thing, is that we're in a spot now where it used to be if you were on a farm, you needed 8 kids because 3 of them were going to die. And the other ones were the ones that were going to harvest your food for you. Also, there wasn't a social safety net. So when you got old, your retirement plan was your kids. We don't live in that world anymore. Now, If you have kids, it's probably a lot more deliberate, or it's religious or something else. So I think that's the relevant thing. I think it's economic.
Well, it's funny. There's like this link between the Jordan conversation and this one, which is that like you now have kids because you like love, you want to do, you love, you feel the love, and you want to have the thing, you want to possess things on or whatever. Whereas before, you're right, there was more of an economic driver to having kids. Milly, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's not to say that like therapy culture, it just it's giving people in an entire generation a chance to reflect and see moments where, oh man, like my parents were using me as a way to heal through some shit that was probably too much to put on me. And I need to heal first before I do it. And also, there are cheaper ways to heal your inner child than having another child, like perhaps having a dog or whatever. Because now, again, to be a good parent, back to Andrew's point, to be a good parent in those days, all you had to do was make sure your kids don't die. Now your kids have to be in all the sports, be in this, be in that. Eggs are $10. Where the hell are you going to live? Because there's no housing. There's cars everywhere, all this stuff. They can't walk to school by themselves. They can't do this because it's parent neglect. Like the standards for parenting also that society puts on you. It's so easy to like be deemed like not good enough. So I just feel like there are cheaper, more affordable efforts and ways to heal through and to get love than having a kid now. And I think that it's disingenuous to just put it on. This is kind of like a repurposing of millennials can't buy houses because of avocado toast. Instead of putting the onus on all of society and like, how did we get to this place where people are too scared to have kids, or they can't afford to have childcare or this and that, or like the housing or whatever. How did we get to it's the Gen Z's fault versus how can us as a society make it cheaper and easier for anyone who wants to have kids, for all the kids to be able to eat and do stuff?
Well, okay. So first of all, we talked about the ice bucket challenge a few months ago, and we actually got a couple of listeners reaching out to me, being like, one of the things we said in that episode was that there's so much therapy speak out there, and this new ice bucket challenge was about mental health awareness. But it's like there's actually so much mental health awareness. Oh my God, there doesn't need to be any more mental health awareness.
We're too aware,
and we're too aware. And in a way, I threw therapy under the bus, and I think the other panelists did as well. And we had some listeners reach out being like, the democratization of therapy has actually been a good thing, and the fact that some of that language is out there is a good, it can be a good thing. So I think both of those things can be true. It's like somewhere in the gray middle. It's not clear cut. But let me throw therapy under the bus like one more time by saying that as a parent, I have now a lot of friends who've chosen not to have kids, and they're also the same people who have like do not speak to their own parents. There's a lot. I have not a one,
Name
more
them.
than one
Name
friend.
all your friends right now on your
with
podcast.
social security numbers. No, I have friends that do not talk to their parents anymore, and I'm surprised. It's like more than a couple, right? And I think, and they're also the same ones that are like choosing not to have children or whatever. And I think that there's something about. I think about my own parents. My own parents almost never talked about their parents' type of parenting. Did your parents talk about the parenting of their own parents? It's not something that ever came up, but in my life, I feel like that comes up constantly. And I do wonder, again, statistically, can we measure this? No. This is just, again, like you're saying, Andrew, just a fucking thought experiment. But as far as thought experiments go, I would say anecdotally, I've made that into 3 words for some reasons.
Like a Southern gentleman, anecdotally.
Anecdotally, I feel like there is something where we talk about our parents' failings, and then to rile ourselves up about our own failings. And to know, and as a parent, I know I'll never be the ideal. I will just never do, and I'll never do the ideal because of all of the social pressures, because of the money, because of the this, because of that, but also because of the stuff that I've said about that my parents didn't do. How could they have ever done what they were, the ideal? They couldn't. I can't. You know what I mean? And this is just where we're at. And so it just leaves people feeling unsuccessful in every facet of their life, including their parenting skills.
Listeners, I'm going to pull the rug out from under Negin on this one. Negin, I'm sorry to do this to you, but Negin has 50 acres of cabbage in upstate New York, and I happened to notice she purchased those when she fell pregnant with her first child, of which she's had 8.
Wow.
And so I kind of think the lady doth protest too much.
I'm a trad wife. What listeners don't know is that I fully became a trad wife. And I'm making papyrus in my. What was that, Milly?
I said a trad wife with a political podcast that reaches. Yes, because all the trad wives online have millions of followers. I'm like, there ain't nothing trad about that.
Oh God, totally. Final word on this, Milly?
I was gonna say is that I grew up. I'm one of 6 kids. I don't know if you know that about me.
I did not know that about you.
Yes, I'm one of 6 kids. I'm number 5. My parents, my mom was an entrepreneur. She owned like multiple hair salons, and I was always late to be picked up. I was always late, and I had this like, I'm always forgotten. I'm always this, and then it wasn't until I'm in Brooklyn. Picture me running to get my dog from dog daycare, like 10 minutes before they closed, and I'm like, wow. I have so much compassion for my mom. She was doing her best. She was trying. She was juggling a million things. So I'm just saying, like, hopefully with the right amount of therapy, you can say, listen, we're all trying. We're all doing our best. Our parents are doing our best. That's all we can do. And probably the good thing about being a parent is that you're not going to give your kids the trauma you had. You're going to get new trauma for them. They're going to have new problems that you couldn't even wrap your head around. And that's what's beautiful about the future.
All right, folks, what a delightful note to end on. That is the end of this episode. I want the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Milly, where do they do that?
You can do at Milly_Tamarez on Instagram and TikTok, and at Milly Tamarez on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm still there. I'm still holding on. One of these days, it'll be good for Twitter again.
Oh my God, I'm still on Twitter too. I just like kind of never look at it except for those days when you do look at it. That's kind of my thing. Andrew, where do they find you?
I am a lot less active on social media than I used to be, but I'm very active on my podcast, The Political Orphanage. So if you've fallen in love with my dulcet baritone voice, you can find me there. It is a show designed for people that are tired of red team versus blue team stuff. I am so tired of it that the last 2 weeks I haven't even covered politics. I just did a special on assassination attempts you've never heard of, like the guy that tried to shoot Andrew Jackson. Like, why did they kill Garfield? I don't know. So I've been doing that kind of stuff. You can find that on The Political Orphanage.
Oh my gosh. Folks, you should love his dulcet tones, and you should absolutely subscribe to both of their pods and don't follow Andrew, but listen to his pod all the time. And you know where to find me. And again, like I said, if you're going to be in Chicago this week, you could come check me out on the Wait, Don't Tell Me stage. Thursday night in Chicago is where we tape. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone who makes this podcast a possibility. Our new producer, Rob Heath. I want to thank Gaby for our theme music. You can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.